Welcome back. Last year, on January 6th, an angry mob stormed the U.S. Capitol following the 2020 presidential election results. A year after the riot, the Bronx Documentary Center explores the event that changed American history with an exhibition titled Storming the Capitol, which opens to the public on January 29th. Joining me for discussion on the exhibition are photographers Shuran Huang and Gabriela Bhaskar. Thank you both for joining me.
Hi,
Um,
Kibin. Thanks for having me here today.
yeah,
Yeah, so can we just start off can you tell us about your collaboration with the Bronx Documentary Center in regards to this exhibition? And Sharon, we'll just start with you.
Cool. Yeah. So I think at the end of December, so I think the Bronx Documentary Center staff, Cynthia Rivera, she reached out to me asking if I have some work around like the January 6th insurrection and even just like the events before that leading up to the January 6th insurrection to show to them. So I just sent them like a collection of work and they end up just picking two from that collection. Yeah.
And Gabriella?
it was a very similar situation, Cynthia. I used to teach at the Bronx Documentary Center and have had a fellowship there. And Cynthia reached out knowing that I had been in DC that day. And I also just sent over a collection of images and they selected a couple from there.
Awesome. Now, Storming the Capitol will showcase the work of several photojournalists who captured the chaos that happened on January 6th. Sharon, what can viewers expect to see when they just visit the exhibition?
I would say like this is such a collection of images from like all talented photographer and photojournalists in this industry. So I would say like each of us has contributed to like a historic moments of the United States, and including me. And every one of us has such unique photographic style. So I would say viewers are expected to see. They really expect to see like images from just like a collection of like really talented photojournalists, like with amazing images. Yeah.
So, we don't get to speak or hear from photographers often because they usually tell their stories through pictures. Gabriella, can you detail your experience capturing these photos?
Yeah, I think a lot of us had gone into DC on the 6th or that weekend, or those couple days, I guess, knowing that there was going to be some kind of violence. In the months leading up to January 6th, there were a lot of fighting in the streets of DC, and a lot of the organizations and groups that were going to be gathering on the 6th had already been coming to DC and showing us that. I think the manner in which it happened was really surprising. I think there were many times during the day where I looked up at the Capitol and expected the police or law enforcement to really hold back the line. But it was really alarming, I think, to be around in a situation where there were quite literally Nazi symbols being displayed, and people identifying us as press and getting upset, and then trying to figure out how to manipulate oneself out of that situation in a really packed crowd. I mean, I think a lot of us have like varying memories from that day depending on where we were also, but it was really a calculation of like how much risk one is going to take to get the picture that you want, and where you can be to get the photos, what was really happening on the ground. There was a really lot to think about that day.
Now, I love that you brought up the term risks because that kind of leads into my next question. Just, as we can see from many of the photos, some of them taken from other photographers, photojournalists are often in the middle of very dangerous situations. I think, as many people know, January 6th resulted in many injuries and even a few deaths. Sharon, you were on assignment for that day for the National Geographic. Looking back, did you expect it to become so violent and that you could be putting your safety at risk?
Oh, totally not. You know what is funny is like I was actually on assignments for the Washington Post earlier in the day, and I didn't get the call from National Geographic until I think afternoon. Um, so the photo editor called me, and apparently like, all those like major outlets have seen like the situation's getting worse and worse. The photo editor, Mallory, yeah, at National Geographic, she called me and asking me if I will be, comfortable actually photographing such like a dangerous and risky situation. And to be honest, that was my first National Geographic photo assignments. And of course, like as a freelance photojournalist, I would always say yes, right? And I was also just like curious, like what's actually happening. And then I picked up my camera, and I don't have any kind of like safety, like helmet and stuff. So I went to my friend's house and grabbed kind of like a bicycle helmet and put it on myself. And I have some goggles that I use usually for like running. So I just like wear them and just go there. And when I got there, I just felt like, oh, I probably shouldn't wear that much gear to make myself look like a media person and become the target. And all of a sudden, someone asked me, they just walked by and saw me have this, I guess I look like Asian and Chinese, and following, former President Trump's accusation of China virus. And I just got scared, and but I felt like because my responsibility as a photojournalist is to document the moment, so I just like kept going and kept approaching the Capitol Hill and just didn't even worry too much. But definitely, yes, I was very, very scared.
Wow. And Gabby, you talked about it a little bit, but did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think as documentarians, we often like make this calculation about whether or not what is happening in front of us is really worth the risk that we're going to take. And I think that day, something completely historic was happening before us, and so that yeah, I mean, that was definitely a calculation that I had made, like how much risk am I willing to take. I wasn't on assignment that day. I had been documenting the aftermath of the election and been doing some work on a long-term documentary project, and had shifted gears because that frankly wasn't going very well, and approached the Capitol to see that at that point the bleachers for the inauguration had just been breached. And so, yeah, I mean, there was definitely times that I was definitely worried for most of it, but I also had friends who I was staying with who were in the Capitol, and I was frankly more worried about them because at some point, we found out that Ashley Babbitt had been shot, which means that there were live rounds in there, and I also knew that a lot of them hadn't brought their vests in. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I was worried for myself, but I was also worried for my colleagues that I knew were inside the Capitol.
Well, we all know the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I actually want to take a deeper look into some of the photos you took that day and some of the photos that are in the exhibit and just see what you have to say about them. Okay. So, Shuran, we're going to start with you. We have a photo here, and I believe it's very popular amongst viewers in the media because it really captures the essence of the state of the country. Can you just explain what was happening in the photo?
Sure, yeah. So this photo was actually not taken on January 6th, but this photo was taken on a day, I think a Trump rally like in December 2020. Um, so I remember I was walking around in the rally and like seeing everybody like, of course, like carrying different kind of flags and weapons. And that was one moment I remember on the other side of the flag. I actually saw a Trump supporter basically was wearing a really, Trump-like costume. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he would like stand in line and actually wanted to take a photo of the flag. And of course, he did. I think this kind of reviews part of our responsibility as a photojournalist is actually to anticipate a moment, like oftentimes we have to wait at a scene and anticipate what is going to happen. And of course, we also have to, and another part of our responsibility is to carry curiosity every day. If you cover any kind of news events, how do you make a photographic like moment to look interesting, right? So I remember that was such a sunny day. The light was hitting on the flag. So all the photojournalists was lining up on the other side of the flag, trying to take a photo of people like Trump supporters like taking photos of the flag. I was just curious. I wonder if there's a shadow on the other side of the flag. And of course, I was waiting for this Trump supporter. At his turn, he was like he was like posing like this and everything. And so I walk around to the back of the flag, and of course, I saw a shadow of him posing like this. So I was like, oh, this is such a great moment. And then also, like, you can see some of the people on the sides, they're also Trump supporter. The way that they react to the flag and people like that Trump supporter, like posing for the photo was kind of like really interesting. It's just like a photo with a lot of dynamic going on. Yeah.
Now, you also have a photo from National Geographic that was on January 6th. Can you just quickly tell us, like, what that was about?
Yeah, sure. So I remember that day, as close as I got, so does everybody else. We kind of just lost our phone connection. Like, I couldn't send out a message. I kept seeing every now and then, kept seeing like messages coming in, check in with me and to see if I was safe. And then I was just kind of like what Gabby was just saying. Like, I was thinking if I should even get closer. So I stopped at one point because all of a sudden I heard a loud sound and somebody tried to like broke it. I guess a collection of people tried to broke into one of the entry of the Capitol Hill. And I kind of just stopped and wanted to see if it kind of like a overview scene of the Capitol, how it's gonna like, right? You'll probably see a different version of that. And yeah, I just feel like that was such a moment to see a landmark of democracy at the United States just was bridged. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Gabrielle, we're going to talk about some of your photos as well. You have this one photo where we see an American flag and, people have their hands up. Can you quickly tell us what was happening in this photo?
Yeah, this was along the outskirts of the main violence. And I think one of the things that was really striking to me that day was um, the the sense of duty that people felt to be doing what they were doing. And there was a moment where this massive U.S. flag was being like pulled over the crowd, and I kind of similarly to Shuran, had anticipated that people would in some way try to interact with it and made that photo. But ultimately, it really was to me about this really strange feeling that I had that people really were trying to protect democracy and protect the United States, but ultimately their work did the opposite. So, yeah, I mean, that was what was happening in this moment. And yeah.
And now for your next photo, we see a man wearing a blue outfit, a very interesting blue outfit. Can you tell us what made you want to take that photo?
It's actually an elderly woman who was
Oh,
standing there. And yeah, I think one of the things that was striking to me that, happened that day was, as a person of color, I was very aware of the symbolism that was happening around me. I mean, um, a lot of Nazi symbols, a lot of white nationalist symbols, a lot of the groups that I had been following also like wear tattoos. And I think that one of the things that I noticed was that there were smaller contingencies of diversity in this crowd ethnically. And so there were a group of Vietnamese people. And this woman was standing there like so proudly, and I thought it was really striking amongst the crowd. And she was shouting quite a lot, like "Stop the steal," different phrases that had sort of become like landmarks of this whole day and campaign since.
wow. Well, I really appreciate both of you guys taking the time to speak with me about this. We're going to put on the screen how people can stay in touch with you and see some more of your work, and that the exhibition will be on display January 29th. Once again, thank you both for joining me.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Yeah, thank you for having me too.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.